Does ISU stand for Iowa State University or Injury State University? I joke, but I'm just depressed.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Nick Marovitz. Thank you so much for making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. If you hit subscribe down below, you help us prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking about pregame against Cincinnati. All right, we've got a lot of bases to cover. We're going to start with the injury report. Then we're going to talk about kind of general vibes. Is this a game that Rocco has to take over? We'll talk about that in the second segment. And then finally, to round things out, we're going to talk keys to victory, key players, however you want to look at it. And then as well as my final prediction ahead of the game. Obviously, we'll see how that plays out on Saturday. Can't wait to dive into all of that and probably, honestly, a lot more. But first, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. I joked at the beginning of this about the injury situation, but at the same time, what is going on in Ames, Iowa? Like, genuinely, what is happening? I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. All I have right now is the injury report that was posted on Thursday night. So I do have the most up-to-date one at this moment. I've got way too many guys on this list to count. Way too many guys. I'm just going to name them. I'm going to go list top to bottom and try to stay with me because it's a long list. And then we'll talk about some of the changes that were made from yesterday's, Wednesday's report to now Thursday's report. I've got all of these guys I'm about to say are out. Jontez Williams, Jeremian Cooper. We knew both of those. Wide receiver Carson Brown, DB Cam Smith. Wide receivers, Daniel Jackson and Michael Parks. DB, very important here, Kaijon Cummings-Coleman. Jace Gilbert, the kicker. Jaden Jackson, the running back. Vince Benetti, the tight end. Eddie Lemos, the defensive back. Offensive lineman, Dalen Hazard and Will Tompkins. Then the two wide receivers, Kyron Brookins and Dylan Malone. And, of course, Kyle Conrarty. I don't want to count all that. I don't know how many it was. That was too many. And a lot of names that I feel like we all know. So that is quite frightening. We also have one other name on this list under the probable. It is David Coffey. So let's just start with the fact that Matt Campbell at this point, I'm not going to lie to you, him saying anything just doesn't really mean all that much. We heard him talking earlier this week about Kaijon Cummings-Coleman would definitely be back or was good to go, I believe was the term that was used, as well as some of the other names that we've seen on this list under the out category. There are other guys I'm going to bring up, but like the way he was talking about David Coffey and specifically Kaijon Cummings-Coleman, I'm just kind of straight up irritated a little bit. I don't love the way that that's handled. I at least appreciate the transparency here, but I don't love being kind of strung along. And I know that that's kind of how Matt Campbell plays this game. So I can already see the comments. Like, we've known this for years. I get it. But like, what? Okay, whatever. You know what? I'm just going to move on. Some of the other things we didn't talk about with this, the injury report from yesterday came out after I recorded. So I did not get a chance to speak on it. Dominique Orange was on the list yesterday. I believe he was listed as questionable yesterday. And today he is not on the list at all. I've got it right here. He was probable. Okay, so not quite questionable, which is better. That's good news. That is very good news. I saw that, and I immediately kind of freaked out a little bit yesterday. And then now he's not on the list. So let's not panic, all right? Now, as far as injuries go, this is not a great situation. I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, we're completely fine. We aren't even going to see a difference. We are going to notice. I am sure of it. And if we don't, kudos to the coaching staff. Kudos to the players that step up. That's awesome. But this is just too many people, I think. I think this is way too big of a list. This is enormous. I mean, this is ridiculous. Let's do the count. 3. I've got 6. I've got to count it a different way. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17 by the fastest count I possibly could that are out against Cincinnati. What is happening? I just want to, I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, let's just move on. It doesn't really matter because they aren't playing. So how will Iowa State fare? Who's going to step up in these situations? It's probably the best that we can do in this moment in time. How will Iowa State respond to this? Well, obviously at wide receiver, Carson Brown being on this list immediately stood out to me, right? Like there are a couple other guys, Dylan Malone, but the Carson Brown one stood out to me. Who could step up at wide receiver? Well, we talked for a full 10 minutes yesterday about Chase Brown. So Chase Brown, I think, is absolutely number one. We've got Brett Eskelson that's going to step up as well. Eli Green, Xavier Townsend, Dominic Overby, all guys that are very capable. And I think we're going to talk more about the wide receivers in the second segment. So if you're interested in that, stick around. But other than that, even I'd go Bramer and Burkle, right? Like those two guys have shown up consistently in the past game too. So I don't love the fact that Carson Brown is out, but I am not panicking about that. Defensive back, I don't feel great. I don't. We've got John Tez out, Jeremiah Cooper out, Kyjon Cummings-Coleman out, Lemos out, Coffee probable. Look, it's so many names. It's going to be extremely difficult to play at really, I mean, what, 80%? I feel like if we're at 80% of what we were, I would be happy with that. So who steps in? You know, if it isn't Coffee, like Campbell was talking about, well, Trey Bell is going to be kind of the guy right now at corner for Iowa State. Benny Ngoye absolutely going to be on there as well. We're going to see probably a lot of snaps. It would be my prediction from Benny Ngoye. I wonder if we'll see a fair amount of Carson Van Dinter as well. But I'd love to toy around with the idea of maybe there's some movement from the free safeties into the corner position. We talked a lot this offseason about there was kind of some fluidity between those two positions. And if nothing else, there was a very tight bond between those players and those coaches. They can all kind of go in between groups, even if they weren't going to be necessarily playing the other position. So these players like Marcus Neal and Jameson Patton, they understand, I think, generally what's going on all across the entire secondary. And if need be, they can kind of cycle and play a little bit of what would be more of like a quote unquote utility role. So they're not necessarily only defined to safety or only defined to corner. That I wouldn't hate that. I don't necessarily love that either. Drew Sturgis will probably see a relatively steep increase in snaps. Quentin Taylor, a guy that was talked about a lot and did not make his way onto this list as of right now. So that's really good. That is a nice feeling. To be fair, looking at this, it is the majority wide receivers and defensive backs. Now, when you lose, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs, you're going to be thin. So I'm not going to say we're okay at defensive back. I think we've got enough at wide receiver. We're going to be just fine. This is a threatening list. This is a scary injury report. There is no two ways about it. That is not, I'm just staring at it, and it's October. It's clearly October. I know you guys talk about, Brocktober, Rocktober, excuse me. What am I doing? No, this is Halloween. What am I looking at here? Over 15 guys on the out category for Iowa State. This is ridiculous. How are they going to respond? What are they going to do to win this game against Cincinnati? Because I think they need to. I don't think this is like a negotiable, well, you could drop this one, whatever. Like, I know that, no, this is not that. So what does Iowa State need to do? I think it needs to go through Rocco. We'll talk about that coming up here in just 1 second. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was Chase Sowell showing up time and time again against Arizona to become effectively the bona fide wide receiver one for Iowa State. Couple extremely deep shots, extremely tough catches, a couple of slants that he took with a large amount of yards after reception type of situation. He balled out against Arizona, and Iowa State absolutely need it. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Iowa State, Rocco Becht delivered in a big way. We've talked a lot about Chase Sowell and what he did in the reception game this last weekend, but who was delivering him the ball? Rocco Becht. I mean, he put that ball exactly where it needed to be over and over, and it was always on time. Just like Rocco Becht delivered for Iowa State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Iowa State is being met with maybe one of its greatest challenges in recent memory. Obviously, last season wasn't ideal at the linebacker position, but this season it seems like it's across the board that Iowa State's going to have to be dealing with injuries. And the question here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, is how do they respond? How does Iowa State handle the situation that they have been dealt and move forward and succeed? Well, this is the time where Iowa State benefits from the quarterback that they've got. Rocco Becht is the guy to step up for Iowa State. If there were one man on this entire roster you want stepping up into the limelight in front of tens of thousands of people to take on the biggest challenge that they might face this season, it's Rocco Becht. Look, I know we're talking quite highly of Cincinnati in that situation, right? I know that, but it's not even just necessarily about this game. It's kind of about the rest of the season. How does Rocco Becht lead this team to victories the rest of the way, to a Big 12 championship title? Well, he's calm. He is very level-headed. I was watching some of the highlights from Iowa State's few games this season, and two things stood out to me. And the first being that Rocco's pretty calm. If you watch any of the throws that he's making, he's putting them, 40 yards downfield into a bucket. And there's always that half-second clip, like maybe even less than a half second, where Rocco releases the ball and then just kind of stands there. And he just kind of hangs out. If he's not being actively hit, which generally for the most part, our offensive line is doing a pretty good job. So he's not really getting hit like every throw. And a lot of these highlights, he's standing up. He gets, kind of gets the throw off, and then he's just kind of chilling, takes a step, looks like he's waiting in line at the bakery. Hey, I got to pick up a birthday cake for my niece, start later today. No, he's in the middle of a football game. He looks so relaxed out there. So I noticed that, right? Obviously, everyone's talked about his poise. My mom, who loves watching Iowa State games and always wants to talk to me about what's going on in them, noticed specifically when the cameras are on Rocco Becht's eyes, he looks like he's just hanging out. He's just at the park, looking around, enjoying the nature, just literally chilling. And that kind of poise is hard to find. That is something that Rocco Becht obviously can use as a weapon, and Iowa State can build off of. The other side of this, though, is that Rocco Becht might be a psycho. That guy is insane. And Taylor Bowser said this, so I'm not the first to say it, and I won't pretend like I am. But a few of the times where Rocco Becht's getting into the end zone, it's hard not to think that. The guy works harder than anyone else, cares more than anyone else. And while he is definitely very calm, very poised, that is not to be mistaken for a lack of passion. The guy lives and breathes not only football, but Iowa State football. If there was one man, like I said, on the entire planet that can lead Iowa State out of this situation, it's Rocco Becht. And I have no doubts. So, does Rocco need to have a generational game against Cincinnati? Well, it's not going to hurt. Let's start there. I would like him to throw for about 550 yards. I think that'd be pretty sweet. Maybe if we could touch around 600, that'd be a good aiming point. But I don't think he needs to. Okay. We just went through that whole effectively that speech basically was what that was, talking about, Rocco Becht as a leader. Rocco Becht needs to lead against Cincinnati. He needs to get this team right mentally, get this team in the right positions, obviously, as far as the offense goes. But when it comes to on the field play, I wouldn't stretch so far as to say that Rocco needs to have some, Heisman career defining moment, whatever. No, I don't think it needs to be that crazy to beat Cincinnati. Now, in a few weeks, might be the case. Colorado, I don't know if I'd say so much for them, but you've got a tough 3-game stretch coming up in BYU, Arizona State, and TCU. And then to close out the season as it gets late in the year, you might need a few of those games from Rocco. I'm not saying that this is that game, but he does need to play very well. We need to see Rocco throwing very well throughout this one, accurately, on time. Obviously, accuracy and ball placement are essentially the same, but I'm thinking about, obviously target selection as well, making reads, coming in and out of plays at the line of scrimmage. Rocco Becht needs to step up in this one. And that's not to say that other players can't kind of take on that role and that the leadership situation can't be split up, amongst maybe Chase Sowell and obviously newer to the team, but that, length on the team doesn't determine how much of a leader you can be or how well you can lead. It has nothing to do with that. Rocco Becht can't split it with Chase Sowell and maybe Caleb Bacon or I'm just trying to pick any. All the guys I want to say are injured, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like Dominique Orange probably going to play. Dominique Orange, there's a good name. It's not to say that it can't be or that it won't be split up between those groups of guys, and it probably is better that it is. It's a lot to ask of one singular guy to lead that entire team, but Rocco definitely can do it. I mean, the guy is nails, as Mauser said. He thrives under pressure. I feel very good about where Iowa State is at solely because of Rocco Becht. The whole first segment was how worried I am, and this is not ideal, and I do think that that's true. Just looking at it from that perspective, that's not great. It's a lot of guys under the out category. But when you look at Iowa State as a team, I feel okay because Rocco Becht is running the show. And you I hate to say this, but no matter what happens, I feel okay about it because Rocco Becht's running the show. Like it really doesn't come down to like for this specific game, I think Rocco is going to be very important. And for the rest of the season, I think Rocco is going to be very important. But to really define a whole season by one game, I just don't feel like I don't love that. I don't love that. So look, I think Rocco Becht's going to handle the moment. I have no problem with that. With saying that, I think that Iowa State is better off with Rocco at the quarterback position, and he's going to be asked a lot. He's going to be asked to do a lot in this game against Cincinnati, and I think he will get it done. But he's not the only key player to this victory, and he's not the only key to victory for Iowa State in this one. We'll talk more about what those are coming up right here after this. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level every single week. I'm obviously a kinesiology major, big fan of what Peloton has going on over there. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Final 10 minutes before we go basically to battle Iowa State versus Cincinnati. Let's wrap it all up. We've talked about it basically all week. Who's going to win? Where is it going to be won? And what will be the score? We're talking about it today here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We've come a long way. We have. Iowa State still undefeated. Cincinnati looking to ruin that at home. Let's start with my concern meter. I've seen a lot of people talking about this game. I do think this is one of the games of the weekend, and not necessarily like one of those like, oh, this is certainly a game this weekend. No, I mean like this is maybe one of the premier games to watch, especially at that 11 a.m. slate or whatever. I think it's noon Cincinnati time, Eastern time, but at the 11 o'clock slate, I think this is a game that everyone should be watching. This is a high-level matchup between Iowa State and Cincinnati. Don't be fooled by the 14 versus the unranked. This is going to be a barn burner, as they say. That being said, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not going to lie. I don't know where to go here. I don't know where to go. Keys to victory for Iowa State. Got to be efficient passing the ball, especially outside the numbers. Rocco Becht absolutely has to be accurate, find the right targets, move the ball down the field, make the right plays, all those kinds of things. Rocco, key player, also very large portion of the key to victory for Iowa State. Obviously Chase Sowell, I think, is going to be big. Brett Eskelson, all the wide receivers need to show up big time in this one. Okay. Another key to victory, quote unquote, for Iowa State offensively is going to be to keep the ball on schedule. We've talked about that last week against Arizona. I don't think it's nearly as big in this one, but Cincinnati does have a relatively tough defense. And if we take a few deep shots and we find ourselves at 3rd and 10, you really find yourself in a tough situation. I think the ball needs to be on the ground a fair amount in this one as well. We can't only rely on the pass. I think you have to take your opportunities when they arise in the pass game, but we obviously need to run the ball very well as well. Let's switch over to the defense really quick. Couple keys to victory here for Iowa State. And we might talk about a few things that Cincinnati could do to slow down Iowa State as well, but Iowa State needs to play very, not conservatively. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, but in a very smart way against Brennan Sorsby. This kid is going to be a problem for Iowa State. Absolutely, he is. He can stretch the pocket, not unlike anything I've ever seen, but it's definitely amongst some of the best. He's quick. He's able to read what the defensive line is doing, make his move, extend plays, not necessarily just take off without any feet under him and get what he can in the run game. The kid can play ball. So whether Iowa State needs to put a linebacker spy on him, if they need to run stunts on the defensive line, whatever it is, Iowa State needs to be smart about how they attack Brennan Sorsby. And I think in that same vein, they need to be ready to adjust. They need to be ready to, don't live or die by whatever your game plan was going in. On some level, I'm sure there is going to be a conversation of, well, you got to trust the process. And this is what we had planned out. This is what the tape showed us. I understand that, and I will let it slide for a little bit. But if we find ourselves in the middle of third and Brennan Sorsby is still dicing us up, we got to figure it out quickly, because I'm guessing at that point it's probably not looking good score-wise. And if it's not looking good score-wise, I would assume that if Sorsby's dicing us up, they're at least still in the game. Let's shut them out. Let's close down the doors. Let's end this charade. Let's call it. And so I want to see some adjustments on defense if need be. That being said, I don't necessarily need to see a ton of sacks in this one. That's not one of my keys to victory. I just don't think that the defensive line is that kind of defensive line in this one. I honestly want to see it more as a run stopper, and we trust the fact that we're dropping 8. I know that that's not what I normally say. I'm very much typically, we need to get to the quarterback, at least get him off his rhythm, get him thinking twice about his decisions, get him feeling uncomfortable, yada, yada, yada. If that happens, great. But I think in almost some ways, I'm not saying that this is necessarily true, but in some ways, Sorsby is almost more uncomfortable, which is very interesting. So I'm not dead set on sending 4 or 5 guys, 6 guys to try to get some pressure on Sorsby just for him to be able to get the ball out quickly. Because while I did talk yesterday about his ability to drop to 7, 8, 9, 10 yards, create that space, therefore create that time and allow plays to develop, he is also very competent in the realm of getting the ball out quickly, which is what Rocco Becht is so good at. And I don't think is actually a key to victory for Iowa State's offense, but we're bouncing around at this point. I just don't think that rushing towards Sorsby is going to get Iowa State more than it's going to hurt them. It's a return on investment type situation. Every now and then you might get a boom or a bust, from that kind of defense. And I don't think that that's where I want this defense to be. Obviously, I'm not the DC, but if it were up to me, I would play this much more middle of the road than kind of fame or famine, right? It's not necessarily where I would go with this one. And finally, as I said in our crossover with Jeff Carr, probably the most important, key to victory area of necessity for Iowa State in the defensive category, the linebackers need to play at basically whatever the top tier linebacker play possibly is, that level. They absolutely have to. There is no negotiating that. The secondary is decimated. That's the only word to possibly use to describe that group of dudes. The defensive line is going to stop the run, at least hopefully in the middle, and force them outside, but they can only do so much as far as setting the edge goes. The linebackers for Iowa State in this game need to be ready to shoulder the load. They need to be ready to come downhill extremely fast when it comes to a middle of the field run. When it's a stretch run, we're getting to the boundary. You're flying on a crazy pursuit angle, getting to the ball, cutting that off, avoiding letting them getting upfield has to happen. In the pass game, I think, probably going to have some sort of spy situation going on in some regard. Iowa State does run a lot of zones, so it's not like you need a spy, but whenever you're in man, obviously probably going to need a spy. Is that even really a spy? It's more of just like a guy who's on Sorsby, but you need to help the secondary as much as you possibly can. And I'm speaking like I'm in some sort of meeting room, but the secondary, it needs the linebackers' help in this one. And I think that they can. I think they can support that secondary group, which is why I say this. I feel very, very good about how talented our linebackers are. But boy, this is going to be a tall task for this defense. They are just so thin, so thin right now, especially at defensive back. Sorsby is good. Sorsby is very good. And don't be surprised if this becomes almost a bit of a shootout. The score I have written down is 39-27. Iowa State comes away with the win. Earlier this week, I said 31-26. Look, I think that 26 is right about right. That's obviously I moved it to 27. But I want to give Iowa State some more points here. I think that Rocco can blow the top off of this defense. I think we're probably going to see 2 massive touchdowns in the pass game, whether they're both to Sowell or one to Eskelson, one to Sowell. 2 45-plus yarders, something really exciting. We're going to get to see that ball float through the air. That's already 14 points. Then you need 25 more. It's only 3 more scores over the course of probably about 3 quarters. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think that this one becomes a high-scoring affair. It'll be very exciting. I do think that this will turn attention towards Iowa State football, but probably not nearly as much as it should, because Cincinnati is a very good team. And obviously, if Cincinnati wins this, then, well, they're beating a top 15 team, so they're going to get their flowers for sure. Let me know down below, what do you guys think? What's the score going to be? Is Iowa State going to win? Who's the key to victory in this one? On the road, this is going to be a tough one, but I cannot wait to see it go down, because I truly think this might be one of the better games this entire season. Be sure to hit subscribe down below. Helps us prove that it is in fact a Cyclone State. And my Twitter is Nick at Nick_Marv. excuse me. I definitely live tweet every Iowa State game. And I kind of let you guys know when the reactions go live. So head over there if you're interested. All right. That being said, good luck this weekend, Iowa State football, and everyone who will be watching. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.